With over 400 million people living with diabetes around the world, and that number growing rapidly, the challenges of management and prevention of diabetes are ever increasing. Now, diabetes experts from basic scientists to clinicians are coming together from across the globe to San Francisco, USA, to work to meet these challenges. Tech hub of the West Coast and gateway to the Pacific, this week the city will play host to discussions on everything from islet biology to epidemiology, genetics to nutrition. Bringing you the very latest research, clinical trials results, and state-of-the-art technology, this is the American Diabetes Association's 79th Scientific Sessions, and we're ADA TV. Welcome to the Moscone. It is Sunday here at ADA's 79th Scientific Sessions. It is sunny here in San Francisco, and all of our attendees are ready to focus on the top issues of the day in diabetes. Everything from insulin resistance to diabetes prevention. They're not just working hard here at the Moscone. As we saw today, diabetes doctors, educators, family, friends, and everyone taking part in the 5K at ADA. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, let's see what's on the show today.
Really feels like we're going around in the big circle, that instead of simply using medications, focusing more on reversal of diabetes, focusing more on sustainability of whatever we do.
Outcomes obviously is what this is all about, because until we have outcomes, people can always argue, well, who cares? It's a nice device, but so what? Right. And this is what we need outcome.
We're seeing that youth do have a more aggressive disease, develop complications far earlier than we would observe in adults, and we clearly need to pay attention to this and find novel ways to approach this disease.
So I think it's an amazing time to get into this field. We know that the burden of disease is huge, but I think the potential for new discoveries is substantial. And I would say to new scientists in the field to be bold, be brave, and ask big, important questions.
Now to the Bay Bridge and Pier 30, where this morning runners did their very best to highlight diabetes and encourage patients and the population at large to live healthier.
Today I'm running to represent what's possible with diabetes. I have type 1 diabetes, and I'm part of Team Novo Nordisk, which we want to inspire, educate, and empower everybody affected by diabetes through exercise.
I actually am an endocrine fellow at UCSF, and we see kids with type 1 and type 2 diabetes all the time, and so I'm running today for them.
I come from Singapore. Since 2011, I started running the 5K.
Participating in this event motivates me. I hope motivates others to do the same.
I'm the president of the Belgian Diabetes Association. I'm a type 1 myself, and I lead by example. It's very important to promote physical activities.
I am coming from Norway, and I'm going to enjoy the ride, and I'm going to think about all the patients out there that will need our help and support in the future.
The race was just fantastic, beautiful setting, sunrise, a lot of good people, a lot of people that are not just running for for getting the record, but just for enjoy themselves and just to fight diabetes. And I think this has been a very incredible success, the 14th in a row.
It was fantastic. It's my second ever ADA. I'm from Wales, and so why wouldn't you run this morning in such a beautiful city, San Francisco, the beautiful view, gorgeous weather.
Great timing, nice course along the waterfront, lots of a great atmosphere, like wonderful people.
Well, the run was incredible. Beautiful day, gorgeous San Francisco.
I run in my country every day I can, because it's amazing sensation for me. I feel free.
And this is the first time I attend ADA. So I think this activity is very exciting, and I think it will give me a good memory.
It's a great cause, it was a great run, amazing day, and a lot of fun.
And now let's take a look at some of the highlights of the rest of the conference, and who better to join me, the ADA Scientific Sessions Planning Committee Chair, Dr. Jose Flores. And thank you so much, Dr. Flores, for joining me.
Thank you, Julia.
How has the conference been going so far?
Fantastic. It really has been. I've been coming to this conference every year since I finished my clinical training, and I have to say, and not because I'm the chair, that this is one of the best ever. And the excitement is really in the air. You can really see it. You can really feel it.
What's at the top of your list? Obviously, there's so many to pick from, but there's another session tomorrow and on Tuesday, so we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, so let me tell you, one of the things that I really liked from yesterday was the Precision Medicine Symposium. I'm very personally invested in that from my own research, and it really is forward-looking, and it was really a fantastic, fantastic session that was attended. But moving forward, one innovation we have for this year, on Monday afternoon, we have a year in review session. And typically years in review are done where a specialist will talk about his or her area of specialization, but here we're doing something different. We're having a clinician say what are the major advances in clinical care of diabetes for basic scientists. And then a basic scientist is doing what are the fundamental discoveries in diabetes the previous year for the clinicians. So that's something that happens on Monday afternoon. And other things for tomorrow, we have the Carolina clinical trial. So that's linagliptin versus glimepiride. So Monday we have the Carolina trial. On Tuesday morning, we have two major clinical trials, Credence and Carmelina. Credence on canagliflozin and cardiovascular outcomes, and then Carmelina also on linagliptin and cardiovascular outcomes. So the Tuesday morning session is going to be packed with new information.
Wonderful. What's been the buzz the last couple of days? Are you hearing any highlights that you're seeing, or some breakthroughs that a lot of attendees are talking about?
Well, I think with these new drug classes of SGLT2 inhibitors and GLP-1 receptor agonists that have both cardiovascular and renal benefits, people don't quite understand all the mechanisms by which that happens, but the fact that you can improve not only diabetes control from a glucose perspective, but also the outcomes that matter, whether you get a heart attack or whether you have your kidneys affected, have the community very excited. And it has attracted our colleague organizations from the nephrology world and from the cardiology world to join us and do joint symposia that are mostly focused on these types of drugs.
Is there something you're most excited about?
Well, I'm really excited about the closed loops artificial pancreas, bionic pancreas technology that is going to be able to deliver insulin and sometimes glucagon to treat diabetes by measuring glucose and doing that without the patient having to intervene. You know how liberating that is, where a person can just put the device on and not have to think about what they're going to eat or the exercise they're going to do, because the algorithm, the machine, will take care of the glucose management and be able to synchronize with their smartphone, with the physician's office, and all of that information, basically freeing them up from the mental part of the brain that needs to be concentrated on that part of their life. So that is really coming to, and there's a couple sessions in these scientific sessions based on that.
Yeah, that's
very exciting.
Freeing, and obviously takes the pressure off, and such advancements there.
And for children, so parents don't have to worry so much.
Right. Right. Are you seeing young attendees, young doctors getting into the field?
Well, doctors and researchers who are coming in, and very international. The diversity is really phenomenal, and it's really wonderful when you go around the halls and then you see people from other countries who come to the United States. They're welcome in the United States, and they have smiles on their face. They have their pictures taken, with the map and with the ADA paraphernalia. And so, hopefully we're having an impact worldwide.
Oh yeah, it's a universal topic, as we're seeing as well.
Yes.
Dr. Flores, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Julia.
For many years, our primary means of measuring how well someone is managing diabetes has been with the A1C test. But the use of continuous glucose monitors suggests that this test is not giving us the full picture. We'll discuss where to go next. I'm joined by two experts in this area, and thank you very much for joining me. Why don't we begin with some of the limitations of A1C testing and also how GCM revealed this?
The A1C is the test of time that has been used as a measure of the average glucose control for patients. It reflects average sugars, let's say, over the last 3 months. But as somebody said before, if you have 1 foot in a boiling water and the other one in a bucket of ice water, on average you're comfortable, right? So this is the same thing. When you look at A1C, which is an average, it gives you a measure of the average sugars, but it doesn't tell you specifically what the problems might be in someone's A1C is above it, whatever the recommended target is.
And one of the other problems with A1C is that there are a number of different factors that affect A1C other than glucose or glycemic control.
And then we go back to how has CGM revealed this?
Well, I usually use the analogy in saying that, if you look at A1C or individual blood glucose measurements, it's like if you're looking at pictures in a family album. If you look at CGM, it's like watching a movie. You have a continuous record, and you can have a better idea what might be going wrong or right with the patient. It will help you to make specific changes in the treatment.
Why have we relied on A1C for so long?
Initially, if you think about many, many years ago, we were just using urine ketone strips and urine glucose strips, and so we really didn't have a good measure. And then it was finally the DCCT trial that showed us that A1C was a reliable measure of risk for complications. And so that's actually what pushed the FDA to allow drug approval based on an A1C.
And if we talk about alternatives, what's an alternative?
Well, again, the alternative, you can just go by individual finger sticks, as people have done. You can go by urinary glucose testing, as people did decades ago. Or you can advance to the 21st century and use continuous glucose monitoring. Again, as I mentioned before, it gives you a much better idea what the daily excursions are, what is the effect of food, what happens overnight. You get a much bigger picture, and it can help you and the patient to figure out what to do next if the A1C is not where it should be.
As a member of the FDA Advisory Committee, what are some of the challenges in making this work in practice?
One example is to make sure that this measure, for example, time in range, actually translates to outcomes. So that's one. And then the other is if continuous glucose monitoring is mandated for approval of new diabetes drugs, we actually have to get CGM to all the patients in the trials. And so access, I think, is another one.
If we look globally, how have scientists come to an international consensus, or have they?
We sort of an idea about the A1C targets, and pretty much every organization, including the FDA, has a pretty good idea what A1C should be. So now you have hundreds of thousands, not millions of people using CGM. The question is, what constitutes success? So we had an international meeting on the time in range back in Berlin in February, and actually the results will be unveiled here at the meeting. To try to figure out what does success look like. So basically this time in range consensus said right now, from the studies which have been done, success is time in range, which is defined as 70 to 180 milligrams per deciliter over 70%. Conversely, you'd like to have as little time below range, i.e. limit hypoglycemia as much as we can, and basically again the agreement is to keep the total time in hypoglycemia under 4%. So this is going to be basically now hopefully part of the standards going forward. And as she said, hopefully it's going to also make its way to language of the regulators.
Right. So what does this mean for drug approval?
I think it's a very complicated question. Right. There are many aspects to this. And so I think that the FDA does need to see a lot more information before it can use this as an outcome. So I think that the FDA is very invested in validating new outcomes and getting new drugs to patients that can help them to improve quality of life.
Yeah, I was going to say, how would this change people's lives?
I think it's going to be a...
Well, obviously, because again, if we're not talking specific about patients on intensive insulin therapy, clearly try to limit time and hypoglycemia already is going to change, obviously, people's lives. And the mantra of the FDA's led actually Beyond A1C movement is really those 4 things. Number 1, maximize time in range. Number 2, minimize time in hypoglycemia. decrease glycemic variability and improve patient-reported outcomes. And the outcomes obviously is what this is all about, because until we have outcomes, people can always argue, well, who cares? It's a nice device, but so what?
Right.
And this is what we need outcomes.
Absolutely. I want to thank you both for your time today and all your involvement here at the sessions, and thanks for joining us on ADA TV.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now to leave San Francisco and plot a course around the world one more time. As one of the premier diabetes meetings in the world, we wanted to check out some of the best work being done in the U.S. and way beyond. First then to North Denmark and Steno Diabetes Center, one of 5 in the country and focused on providing diabetes services to a wide range of patients, including tackling complications like diabetic foot and ensuring transition age youth receive the services they need.
Welcome to Steno Diabetes Center North Denmark and to Aalborg University Hospital. Research has a prominent place in Steno Diabetes Center North Denmark. We focus on the specific needs of people with diabetes, decentralizing healthcare delivery and prioritize digital health in terms of technology and big data.
Aalborg University Hospital has shown that bone fragility and fractures are a common complication of diabetes, and we are at the cutting edge of bone and diabetes research.
We do research within bone quality, bone structure, bone microarchitecture and bone turnover. Bone scans, that is DEXA scans, quantitative CT, advanced measures of bone turnover as well as body composition. We also do research on postural balance in order to investigate the risk of falls and thus the risk of fractures.
Diabetic neuropathy is a key research area in the Steno Diabetes Center.
Our main focus is on the diabetic foot, the Charcot arthropathy and diabetic gastroparesis, and also painful diabetic neuropathy, and they very often result in very poor quality of life for these unfortunate people suffering. We are utilizing advanced imaging techniques and a number of other research and data-driven technologies to assess these late complications of diabetes. And the overall aim is to reach robust clinical endpoints that will result in better clinical care and perhaps even more importantly, in better clinical trials and outcomes of these.
The diabetic foot is a major challenge globally. Aalborg University Hospital has been running a multidisciplinary foot centre since 2003, and with the Steno Diabetes Centre, it is being greatly reinforced.
On a research and data-driven platform, we aim to reduce the frequency of amputations and lower healing time. Efforts in the area of the diabetic foot include focusing on the Charcot arthropathy, and we have a great history in the Steno Diabetes Center looking at bone. And we're currently setting up a number of PhDs, that is a PhD program in this area. Diabetic gastroparesis is another neuropathy-driven complication, and at times it affects people very badly, affecting quality of life. It also affects glycemic control, and it affects drug absorption. Our gastroenterology department has a number of innovative methods with which we can assess these complications.
The transition from childhood to adulthood can be challenging, and diabetes can lead to even bigger troubles in this period of life. The Clinic of Transition at the Steno Diabetes Centre is a multidisciplinary team of experts from both the paediatric and adult diabetes teams that supports adolescents in their handling of diabetes during this especially vulnerable period of life. Individualised treatment programmes are being planned, taking the wishes and needs of young patients into account.
Good day.
Good day.
Digital solutions also make telehealthcare and consultations over distance possible. This is in high demand by younger patients and may even be able to replace some scheduled visits to the hospital. The new Aalborg University Hospital is now under construction, and the Steno Diabetes Centre will move into new state-of-the-art facilities for diabetes treatment in 2022.
Our vision is to improve the quality of life and lifespans of people with diabetes, to create a coherent diabetes treatment close to the individual citizen, and to halt the increase of new onset diabetes.
Next, it's the final part of our journey with Hua Medicine. Their glucokinase activator holds great promise for improving the lives of people living with diabetes. And with their rigorous approach to the science and their global collaboration, they're hoping to make a real impact.
全球的糖尿病应该有4.3个亿，那么中国就占了1.4个亿，这个负担都是非常之大的。将来糖尿病病人如果控制不好，比如说血糖控制不好、血压控制不好、血脂控制不好，或者说这个体重控制不好等等，这些都会容易出现一些并发症。那么所以目前这些上市的药仍然不能够满足现在所有糖尿病病人的这个需要，所以我们还仍然需要研发一些新的药。
The cause of the disease obviously has a lot of things to do with the genetic background, food structure, lifestyle, and also medical conditions. But at the end of the day, as we know, diabetes is a progressive disease. So far, no drug be able to stop it. By the pathological nature, is losing the pancreatic beta cell function.
Since 1975, I have been very interested in understanding what causes type 2 diabetes and in developing treatments that will reverse the basic defects that are present in our diabetic patients. We want drugs that will improve beta cell function, and glucokinase is sort of the gatekeeper at the level of the beta cell. This is what senses the rise of glucose, and we know that there's a defect in glucokinase activity in people with type 2 diabetes. We have some newer glucokinase activators that are coming that look very promising, and what is going to be important in these studies is to really look at the mechanism of action. How are these drugs working? Are they working on the beta cell? How much of an improvement in beta cell function are we getting? Are they working on the liver? Okay. How much of a suppression of hepatic glucose production are we getting? These are all mechanistic studies that are waiting to be done now that we have drugs that look to be effective.
Hua Medicine start our journey to seeking for a new concept, dorzagliatin, as a glucohomeostasis modulator. By repairing the lost function of the system and then getting the system back to work, basically a game changer of how to treat diabetes.
In the United States, if you were to come to my clinic, the average BMI would be 34. In China, if you look back in 1980, the average BMI was 18 to 20. Now the BMI is moving up to 23 or 24. In a certain way, the Chinese sort of pathophysiology of diabetes is becoming more like what we see in the United States, but at a lower BMI. We definitely need to emphasize weight loss, but we also need drugs that are going to work on the beta cell. And that's particularly important, I think, in the Chinese population, because I think that beta cell failure contributes disproportionately more.
二型糖尿病病人从大的方面来看，主要是一个胰岛素抵抗和胰岛功能的下降。这么多二型糖尿病，还是应该有许多的亚型。我们应该根据不同的患者，根据这个不同的机制，那么我们可以选择不同的用药，或者是不同的联合方式。那么这样的就可以增加了一个新的手段。
In order to developing this personalized diabetes care system, we look into the clinical biomarkers from the Chinese type 2 diabetes patients, and then using our algorithm, the patient will immediately get the best medicine for treat of their disease, so they'll be better recovered. Hopefully, our phase 3 trial will bring us the desirable result as we see in the phase 2, and then our drug get approved in China first, and then with our medical leaders in Europe, in Canada, in the United States, we have a joint efforts to treat diabetes.
Now to Israel and Sanz Medical Center Laniardo Hospital, a center that formed the basis of the country's Patients' Bill of Rights, and now providing exemplary services to its population living with diabetes.
"80 years ago, in the midst of the terrible era of the Holocaust, Rabbi Yekutiel Yehuda Alberstam, who lost his wife and 11 children, and was himself wounded by Nazi gunfire, vowed, 'If I survive this inferno, I will establish a medical center in Israel.' He kept his promise. Over 4 decades ago, Rabbi Alberstam established the Sanz Medical Center Laniado Hospital. His vision, which places the patient in the center and provides the best medical care available, was the basis of the hospital's founding principles, eventually becoming the basis for the Patients' Bill of Rights passed by the Israeli Congress. Laniado Hospital is a medium-sized hospital that is a center of clinical excellence in many fields, including diabetes under the leadership of Dr. Mark Niven. I invite you to get an insider's view to the Bilderici Diabetes Center, which has been opened since 2008 and provides a unique service to its patients and community.
How can we help you today?
I've been diagnosed having diabetes for a while. I was told it was a serious illness.
That's right. Diabetes is a complicated disease. Diabetes affects lots of systems in the body. It basically causes damage to blood vessels and to nerves, so it can cause things like strokes and heart attacks and affect the eye and the kidneys and so on. And we know by treating the diabetes properly we can prevent them. And what we want to do today is to put you on a round of tests with different specialists to get a very clear picture of how you stand. What we've done is organised a one-stop shop where we can do everything for you in one day. First of all, you'll meet with the specialist diabetes nurse who will talk about blood testing, check your feet. You'll meet the vascular surgeon who will check your blood vessels, your arteries, then ophthalmologist who will check your eyes, and then the dietitian and the social worker. And then we all meet together to discuss you and devise a single treatment plan. And then at the end, you'll come back to me and we'll decide what to do with you.
Fine, let's start.
There is some damage to your vessels as a result of your diabetes. We will do a Doppler of your arteries, and according to this exam, we will see if there is any damage.
I had some problems with the blood vessels, but I don't remember exactly when and what it was.
No problem. We will get into your file and we will get all the details of your past history and then we will give you our decision after doing the laboratory exams and the clinical exams.
Hello.
Hello, doctor.
My name is Beatrice, and I'm your ophthalmologist today. I'm going to check your eyes because you suffer from diabetes. I have to check the anterior segment and the posterior segment of the eye. Please put your chin here. Now I'm checking your retina, your optic nerve. I'm looking for new vessel in iris. This is in the anterior segment, and in the posterior segment in the retina. I'm looking for new vessels also in the optic nerve or elsewhere, and also I'm looking for macular edema, hemorrhages, and also some exudates. The right eye, it's normal, everything is okay. The left eye also. So
Thank
you are
you very
clean.
much.
Now I will check your foot. Don't forget to close your eyes, please, and to raise your hand when you feel. Okay. Very good.
Hi, Moshe.
Hi.
I'm Hila, the head of the nutrition department in Laniado Hospital, and I'm glad to see you.
Pleased to meet you.
I wanted to ask about your eating habits in order to understand what changes we have to do.
So I know what type of food is allowed, what type is not allowed, and I have been trying to be disciplined.
The lifestyle and the eating habit influence the bacteria that exists inside of all of us. And the food that we eat converted in our body to protein, fat, and carbohydrate, and then through the bloodstream get into the cells. We want to change the flow of the sugar that is coming into the cell. Resistance will be lower.
Hello, my name is Ronit, and I am a social worker in the Diabetic Center in Laniado Hospital. Here in our unique center, we believe about the connection between body and soul. We see the patient holistically. Many studies show a strong link between emotional state and the medical condition. And I want to know, how do you feel?
I'm feeling great, especially that I know that I came to the right place, being treated by the right people.
A man of 56 with diabetes for about 2 years on oral therapy, not so well controlled. We don't yet have his HbA1c from today, but a few months ago it was 8.6, which is problematic. We've got to the final stop. How are you feeling?
Well, it was a tiring day, but I came here to get the best advice from the best experts, and I'm looking forward to improving my health.
Okay, well, we've got your results back. First of all, the blood test. There's a very great improvement in your diabetes control. The sugar's gone down a lot, and your other measures are very good. Your eyes are fine, your feet are fine. The blood vessels, there's no significant problem. It's not the case. We actually have some very exciting research going on in using what's called stem cells to produce new blood vessels in the legs, which can treat this problem. The most important thing to do is to take your medication regularly, to stick to your diet and lifestyle changes, and keep an eye on yourself from time to time with repeat tests.
People with diabetes are more likely to develop vascular diseases and die from them. For these patients with life-threatening blood vessel diseases, we have developed personalized cell medicine that can be done in one day and in every clinic. The process is done by taking blood from the patient and combining the force of immune therapy and cell therapy together. Generate specific stem cell activity and bring it back to the patient within less than 1 day. Our results were very encouraging. The therapy was found safe and patients were amputation-free during and after the study. We saw improvement in blood flow, healing of wounds, lack of pain, and ability of walking, resulting altogether in increased quality of life.
A very important aspect of our work at the Bill Ricci Diabetes Center is providing clinical treatment for pregnant women who are diabetic and considered as high risk. I'm talking about women who are on their 7th, 8th, and even more pregnancies. Many of them come to us from far away due to our vast experience at treating such cases, cases that the research literature barely deals with.
Our vision at Laniado Hospital is to open a treatment and research center that specializes in type 1 diabetes in adults 18 and above. On the one hand, there is not a lot of research on the subject, but on the other hand, we see a significant increase in the number of patients suffering from type 1 diabetes at advanced ages. I believe that the clinical work performed by Dr. Niven and his staff, which has been receiving positive feedback from around the world, will forge fruitful cooperation with many others who are working toward breakthroughs in this important field. Come join us.
Now to another one of the exciting clinical trials presented at this year's ADA Scientific Sessions, the RISE trial. Looking at restoring insulin secretion, we hear from author Dr. Stephen Kahn, as well as a panel of experts.
The RISE Consortium performed 3 different protocols as feasibility studies to look if we could find approaches that will preserve beta cell function in individuals at high risk of getting diabetes or those with recently diagnosed diabetes. At the American Diabetes Association meetings today, we presented the results of the adult medication study and contrasted those with the data that we had obtained in youth. In these 2 protocols, one in adults, we used 3 different active interventions, metformin alone, or glargine followed by metformin, or liraglutide plus metformin with a comparative placebo arm, each used for 12 months and then a 3-month washout. And in the youth, we had a metformin alone arm or a glargine for 3 months followed by metformin arms with treatment ending at 12 months and a 3-month washout, which allows for a comparison between the findings in adults and the findings in youth.
Dr. Kahn, we heard the results of the RISE study, very, very interesting. The study, because it had both children and adults, I think is challenging the way we think about impaired glucose tolerance and type 2 diabetes. Dr. Taylor, do you have a question for Dr. Kahn?
I just wonder if you'd comment on how that might impinge upon clinical practice for the initial drugs used in type 2 diabetes, firstly for adults and perhaps separately for children.
I would suggest that we've learned a lot from these 2 studies for both initiation of therapy in adults and in youth. And in the comparison, we looked at the effects of glargine followed by metformin and metformin alone. And in adults found that there was an improvement in certain aspects of beta cell function measured as responses to intravenous glucose and other secretagogues. And these benefits were present after 12 months of therapy. Unfortunately, what we also witnessed is that when you stop the therapy, after 3 months, everything returns back to baseline. In contrast to adults, where with glargine for 3 months followed by metformin, or metformin alone for 12 months, where we saw an improvement while on therapy, which was lost during the washout, in youth, we failed to see such an improvement, and at the end of the washout, it was very clear that they had progressed even further, so that their beta cell function was significantly worse than they were at the time of initiation of the study. Now, this doesn't, in my mind, say to me that we should not be using these medications in kids. Absolutely not. We must use these medications in youth, and I should also add, we did not have a placebo arm in the study in youth, so we don't know really whether the progression we had seen would have been worse if there had been no intervention.
I think one of the very interesting things about this study is it had both children and adults, but it was surprising that the children or the adolescents and adults with type 2 diabetes had a different response. And I wondered what your thoughts were about whether they have 2 different diseases or why they might have responded differently.
Is the disease different in youth and adults in terms of its pathogenesis? Or is this really the same disease that is being accentuated in some form by the fact that adolescents have a variety of other things that are changing at the time, whether it be sex steroids and puberty, whether it be growth and growth hormone and IGF-1, we don't know. It creates a whole series of questions that it'll be critical for us as scientists to address in the future. And in that process, potentially also identify new targets for therapies that would hopefully allow us to slow or even arrest the disease in youth, and then potentially also translate those same observations and therapies into adults.
Could you just describe for us how you see insights into the mechanisms of beta cell failure and what's actually happening as a result of prescribing these agents?
Yes, the beta cell puts out more insulin and seems to be doing better under those circumstances. But unfortunately, when we withdrew the therapy and waited 3 months and retested individuals, all those potential benefits had disappeared. So what that means in the long run in terms of mechanism for disease, I don't know, but we made also some interesting observations when we look at the different measures of beta cell function that we were testing using the intravenous tests that suggest that the beta cell may have a finite capacity to secrete insulin, and that what we were seeing with liraglutide was it was able to push the beta cell to its maximum to secrete. And while it could do that, it at the same time wasn't doing anything in terms of preserving the cell. In contrast, in the youth, as we saw, they demonstrated no real benefit of therapy during the 12 months of the active intervention, which says to me that underlying the changes that we observed is a difference in the pathophysiology that drives these youth to failure more rapidly. That we're seeing that youth do have a more aggressive disease, develop complications far earlier than we would observe in adults, that suggests that this disease in them is really quite severe, progresses rapidly, and we clearly need to pay attention to this and find novel ways to approach this disease, both in terms of preventing beta cell progression and clearly treating the potential complications.
Retinal complications can be one of the most devastating impacts of diabetes, but with state-of-the-art technology and a vast database of eye imaging, the Singapore National Eye Center is optimally placed to diagnose and treat people with diabetic retinopathy. Let's take a look.
The Singapore National Eye Center is a tertiary level national standalone eye hospital. We manage a range of conditions ranging very simple to complex disease. At the same time, we take an international role in conducting research as well as in training ophthalmologists and students from around the world. Diabetic retinopathy is a complication of diabetes. And diabetic retinopathy occurs when there is damage in the blood vessels of the retina caused by high sugar or other problems from diabetes, leading to leakage as well as exudation, and then of course that causes vision loss and ultimately blindness. So it's a very serious complication of diabetes.
So the Singapore Integrated Diabetic Retinopathy Screening Program is a nationwide screening program, and this program is designed to provide telemedicine screening for patients with diabetes, and this screens their eyes for diabetic retinopathy or diabetic eye disease. We now have a system of retina photography cameras which are placed across Singapore in our 20 polyclinics and 6 clinical community health centers, and patients at their convenience can make appointments to get their eye screened. A photograph is taken of the retina of their eye. It is then sent to the reading center where our trained graders then interpret and examine the photographs of the patient's retina and decide if there's any diabetic eye disease or in fact any other significant ocular findings that requires further medical attention. Currently we screen in excess of 120,000 diabetic patients a year, and there's very good evidence that when you screen diabetic patients for eye disease, you are able to detect the eye disease at the point where we can treat it either with laser or eye injections and then prevent them from developing the irreversible blinding consequences.
Artificial intelligence is extremely exciting and novel technology. Of course, we, like other people, are trying to harness the power of AI to help us manage, screen and detect diseases earlier, cheaper and better than current methods. So for example, in diabetic retinopathy, we are now using and testing an AI system to help us better screen as well as better detect and to refer severe diabetic retinopathy.
We have used close to 500,000 of retina images to train and to test a deep learning system in detecting diabetic retinopathy and as well as the related eye diseases. We have shown very good results in achieving more than 90% accuracy in detecting these vision-threatening conditions. So compared to human graders, AI system doesn't need to sleep, so they work 24/7. They don't quit their job, so there's no attrition rate. They analyze the retina images very rapidly. Right now, we are also looking at other retina conditions as well, such as the myopia, which is a big epidemic issues in Asia, as well as looking at different imaging devices apart from just fundus photograph, such as the optical coherence tomography, OCTs. AI is the fourth industrial revolution, and it's actually changed how we live and how we practice medicine. And I believe for the next few decades, it's going to change even more. And for diabetic eye screening per se, right now my team is looking at how we could use the baseline, the images, the clinical data, as well as the different imaging modalities to predict which patients will progress and which patient will remain stable.
We are exploring a whole range of options to better treat our patients more effectively and efficiently. For example, we need to do a lot of injections of medicines to treat advanced case of diabetic retinopathy. In the past, we have used eye specialists to do these injections. We have, in the last 1 year, now managed to start a program that is now led by nurses that, number one, frees up our retina and eye specialists to do other more complex tasks, allowing the patients to have faster and more efficient treatment with our nurse-led injector program. SNEC is turning 30 next year. As we are entering our 30th birthday, SNEC is looking forward to the future with excitement and anticipation. SNEC would like to bring our clinical service, our translational research, and our education together so that we are better able to take care of diseases that will afflict us in the future.
Back to the USA now, and the Sentara Norfolk General Hospital and Eastern Virginia Medical School diabetes programs providing a wide range of clinical services as well as innovative research, including investigations into the role viruses play in triggering type 1 diabetes.
Welcome to our diabetes programs at Sentara Norfolk General Hospital and Eastern Virginia Medical School. Some of the challenges we have in our region include diabetes and obesity. In particular, if we look at the Western Tidewater region, about 18% of adults have diabetes, and is about twice the national average rate of about 9%. Our diabetes programs provide state-of-the-art care of diabetes and its complications, and they also participate in the education and training of students, residents, fellows, and practicing physicians. And in addition, they also participate in the research related to diabetes and its complications in all its aspects.
Eastern Virginia Medical School serves a population of approximately 1.7 million in southeastern Virginia. It's a health sciences university, and we train approximately 800 health professionals, 600 medical students, and 360 residents and fellows, and have a strong relationship with Sentara to meet our academic and clinical missions.
We're proud to say that Sentara Norfolk General is among the top 35 hospitals in the nation, as noted by U.S. News and World Report, with regard to both cardiovascular disease and diabetic and metabolic disorders.
Eastern Virginia Medical School and Sentara Cardiovascular Diabetes Program is one of the signature programs which brought together Sentara Norfolk General Hospital and EVMS. One of the rationales for establishing this unique program was the fact that diabetes prevalence is very high in the cardiovascular diabetes population.
The cardiovascular diabetes program here at the Norfolk General Sentara Heart Hospital campus was created in collaboration with Eastern Virginia Medical School. And the reason why we created it is because we began to see an emergence of patients being admitted to our hospital for cardiac surgery who had diabetes and did not even know they were diabetics.
In our Sentara EVMS cardiovascular diabetes program, there are 5 main components. The first is our inpatient consult service, our multidisciplinary work group that meets monthly, our use of technology, our post-discharge clinic, and the use of our outcomes data to help with quality improvement. In our inpatient consult service, we use an electronic algorithm to help to change our insulin doses and to help manage glucose control while in the hospital.
Approximately 5 years ago, we started a program for a multidisciplinary clinic for cardiac surgery and diabetes in the post-op clinic. After the visit is concluded, we give them a book. It's a cookbook that gives them good recipes that are heart healthy as well as diabetic healthy. We will see them again in the post-op clinic if we feel like we need to. Otherwise, we send them back to their primary care physician or their endocrinologist for further evaluation of their diabetes for management and treatment.
So for the past 20 years or so, we've been collecting information about the patients who undergo bypass surgery and other cardiac procedures here at Sentara Norfolk General Hospital, and to do outcomes research. Outcomes research is a study where we looked at 11,590 patients who underwent bypass surgery. About 43% of those patients had diabetes. What we found is the diabetes patients did not have an increased incidence of mortality or in-hospital post-operative events, which is very reassuring.
In terms of outcomes, it has been about 4 or 5 years since we established the cardiovascular diabetes program. We are able to show occurrence of low blood sugars or hypoglycemia has dropped by more than 50% since we established the program. The Strelitz Diabetes Center at Eastern Virginia Medical School was established in 1987. It serves as the referral center for patients coming from the southeastern part of Virginia for the care of diabetes and also for patient education. In addition, the Strelitz Diabetes Center also serves as the center of education, not only for students, but also for residents, fellows, and practicing physicians. Last but not least, the Strelitz Diabetes Center is also big on research, both in the basic research arena and also in the clinical research related to diabetes and its complications.
At the Strelitz Diabetes Center at EVMS, we use cutting-edge technology including insulin pump therapy, as well as the latest in continuous glucose monitoring. We use the latest medicines available for treating diabetes, including those that have recently been shown to reduce the risk for heart disease development, as well as improving kidney disease in people with diabetes. One of our greatest focuses at EVMS is on patient education. We are proud to have an education program that has been recognized by the American Diabetes Association for excellence.
So in terms of research, the Strelitz Diabetes Center for decades has been doing research in all areas of diabetes, including basic, translational, and clinical research. I would like to highlight 2 areas of research. The first one is my team is working on diabetes medications and cardiovascular outcomes. Over the last few years, the diabetes world has been in excitement because 2 groups of medications that we use for management of diabetes has been shown to improve cardiovascular outcomes, which includes heart attacks, stroke, heart failure, and kidney disease. So we are doing studies which focus on those medications and their effect on heart failure on one side, but also their effect on cardiovascular outcomes in patients with obesity. The second area of research I would like to highlight is our research on diabetic neuropathy. With the leadership of Dr. Aaron Venick, who is a global authority on diabetic neuropathy, some of the results of those studies have led to medications which have significantly improved pain and quality of life in patients with diabetic neuropathy.
Us, the basic researchers involved in diabetes research, are working with surgeons at the Bariatric Center at Sentara Hospital, and also with clinicians at Strelitz Diabetes Center. And we try to investigate how meta-inflammation in adipose tissue of subjects with obesity and type 2 diabetes impact on comorbidities such as cardiovascular disease or cancers.
Here at Sentara and Eastern Virginia Medical School, we'll continue to work hard to ease the suffering of our patients with diabetes, and we'll continue to work hard to discover newer and better ways of managing their diabetes and its complications in Virginia and beyond.
Next up, we'll speak with Dr. Sadaf Farooqi about her award-winning work to understand the mechanisms behind obesity. First, though, to Carmot Therapeutics, whose work focuses on investigating the role GLP-1 might play in weight loss and combating obesity.
Carmot's mission is to bring better therapeutics to patients and to address important unmet needs. What is unique about Carmot is our technology platform called Chemotype Evolution. Chemotype Evolution provides us a novel way to explore chemistry and biology in order to find better drug molecules. Future anti-diabetics should provide multiple benefits, including glucose lowering, increased insulin sensitivity, and at least 10% weight loss. It's important to remember that obesity is the major cause for type 2 diabetes, and we believe it's very important to address the underlying obesity and metabolic syndrome.
Historically, management of type 2 diabetes has been mostly about managing glycemia. Then it became clear that that alone is not enough, and reduction in body weight has become a much more important part of diabetes management and also a required part of a profile of new drugs coming to the market intended to treat type 2 diabetes. And that's also been our approach and our strategy. And we believe that we can bring forward a drug which can not only provide a very meaningful reduction in HbA1c, but also drive double-digit weight loss in patients with type 2 diabetes.
The GLP-1 receptor is a receptor for a ligand called glucagon-like peptide 1. GLP-1 is a small peptide secreted from the small intestinal epithelium after we ingest a meal. One of the very interesting things about GLP-1 is that when it activates the receptor on pancreatic beta cells in the pancreas, it results in a potentiation of glucose-stimulated insulin secretion.
We focus on incretin signaling, and incretins signal through G-protein coupled receptors that can activate several intracellular pathways with different outcomes in different cells and tissues. And by understanding the relationship between the signaling pathways and the outcomes, we can be helped in how to design better and less toxic drugs.
Incretin receptors belong to the Class B family of G-protein coupled receptors. These complex molecules signal through G-proteins to activate a range of cellular pathways. GPCR signaling can vary depending on the interactions that a ligand makes with the receptor. This concept is known as bias signaling and can be exploited when designing novel ligands.
Our approach is to generate incretin-based drugs that harness the benefits of incretins while eliminating the side effects. To address this multidimensional challenge, we turn to our technology platform called Chemotype Evolution.
Chemotype evolution starts with a binding element, or bait, for a biological target. This bait is linked to thousands of fragments on a nanoliter scale using acoustic liquid transfer technology. Carmot can create and test more than 50,000 individual compounds in just a few days, each designed for a specific target. Carmot uses biochemical or cell-based assays to identify the best compounds. A lead from one iteration of chemotype evolution can be used as a bait in a second cycle of library assembly and screening. Through iterative application of chemotype evolution, Carmot can rapidly improve potency, selectivity, and drug-like properties. With chemotype evolution, CARMAT can create bias ligands that amplify the benefits of the natural incretins and improve insulin secretion and sensitivity, blood glucose, lipid uptake, body weight, and liver fat.
The incretins characterized by the GLP-1 class have clearly demonstrated a robust effect on both glycemic control and body weight regulation. Both of these will potentially have a utility in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
At CARMAT, we're exploring dual incretins along with bias signaling to generate better and safer molecules. While we are still at the early stages of this research, I'm confident that by leveraging this concept, we can generate better therapies for the treatment of patients with type 2 diabetes.
Now she's a world leader in metabolic science and played an essential role in better understanding the role leptin plays as regulator of appetite and body weight in humans. I'm joined by this year's Outstanding Scientific Achievement Award winner, Dr. Sadaf Farooqi.
Hello.
Thank you so much and congratulations. Let's just begin. Where did all of this start?
So it really started about 20 years ago when I was a research fellow working with Stephen O'Reilly, who I'm delighted has won the Banting Medal this year. And really it started from a very chance finding, and that was to investigate the cause of severe obesity in 2 young children from a consanguineous family in whom all of the other potential causes of obesity had been ruled out. And so actually my sort of role in this was to measure leptin in those children, which had really just been discovered in mice, and we showed that they were deficient in leptin, and then went on to show that was because of a genetic abnormality. So that was really the first part of this.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that what led you to then understand the genetic mechanisms for obesity?
Yes, that's right. So that was the first proof that disruption of a gene could cause obesity in people, specifically in these children. But then we went on to study many other children and families and show that other genetic disorders could also cause obesity.
Yeah, what was the thinking at that time, and now how has it changed?
So actually there's been a major shift in our thinking. Back in those days, people were really not that interested in thinking about causes of obesity. It seemed to be quite a simple thing. People just eat too much or don't exercise enough. We don't really think about biology and mechanisms. But studies in mice were beginning to show that actually there were real biological pathways involved. And our work allowed us to say this is also important in people.
Are you able to pick one satisfying achievement? There must have been so many, but is there one really that stands out in your work that you've done?
So I think the most satisfying was really taking that knowledge from a discovery in our own lab and using that to treat patients. And when we first started the trial, giving these children with leptin deficiency injections of recombinant leptin, I still remember that first dose, giving it to a child, her courage in being really the first person ever in the world to have this treatment, and then really watching and waiting to see if it might do something, and then realizing that it was actually working. And that has really been the single most important and I think striking recollection for me.
Yeah, that must be so satisfying.
Absolutely.
Job well done. Well, what are you working on now, if you can divulge?
Yeah, so we're working on lots of exciting things. We know that we still don't understand many of the genes that are important in obesity, but we're also taking a different approach because what our patients need are treatments. And so we're looking really now at thin people who manage to stay thin in an environment where many people gain weight, and trying to see if we can find those genes that keep them thin and harness those genes to find new treatments for obesity.
Yeah, what are those genes?
Yeah, we haven't found them yet. We're working on them now.
And what will you be talking to ADA delegates about this weekend?
So I think I'm going to really show how the story has evolved from our understanding that genes can be important, that leptin is important, but how really we understand that there's an entire pathway that biologically regulates our weight. And that really we need to understand that and have a bit more sympathy and understanding for people who struggle with their weight because of this biology.
Your passion for what you do is so evident. So what would be your advice to new scientists considering getting into this field?
So I think it's an amazing time to get into this field. We know that the burden of disease is huge. We know that we have relatively few things we can do about it, but I think the potential for new discoveries is substantial. Insights from patients and harnessing technology. And I would say to new scientists in the field to be bold, be brave, and ask big important questions.
Well, congratulations on your achievements, and Dr. Faruqi, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, as we wind down after another exciting scientific sessions, we want to hear what got you most interested this year as we canvassed delegates here in the Moscone. What has been your highlight here attending this conference?
So it's been really a great conference, and what really struck me this time is that all the rooms are full for all the obesity and nutrition symposiums. So it really feels like we're going around in the big circle, that instead of simply using medications, focusing more on reversal of diabetes, focusing more on sustainability of whatever we do.
But probably the most exciting area is what's going on in the field of NASH and NAFLD. And there have been a number, I think, of very exciting studies looking at mechanism of action of what are the underlying pathogenic features that lead to NASH.
Well, my highlights have been the conferences, knowing new things about diabetes, new treatments, new options, and meeting colleagues from all around the world.
The highlight has been this morning's session on the alpha cell, really challenging the dogma that we have of trying to understand the alpha to beta cell communication and how that can be targeted therapeutically.
The first big experience to be here is to meet with international colleagues. It's a wonderful opportunity to see colleagues from all over the world. We are going into more knowledge about how to protect our patients from heart disease, which is the main focus for us and for our patients also.
This is my second time in ADA conference. I'm a researcher and I came here to meet all the best scientists in the world, and San Francisco is a beautiful city. It's very nice.
Well, that's it for another year at the ADA's scientific sessions. From new results in nutrition, a demo from top chef Ronaldo Linares, as well as deep insight into everything from SGLT1 inhibitors and insulin resistance to time and range and new metrics in glucose control. We've had a fantastic time. Make sure to watch all our content. You never know what you might learn, and share it with colleagues if it piques your interest. Remember, it's here till the end of the meeting in hotels in San Francisco, on our TVs at the Moscone, and of course it lives online forever. Till next year in the Windy City, it's goodbye from all of us here at ADA TV.